Morning. So late yesterday morning, officers responded to a well-being check at 5172 Conroy Road. Family members had not heard from the family of three living at the residence for a number of days. Officers received no response, and while they were checking around, they observed a possible victim through a bedroom window. Officers forced the front door open, and three deceased persons were discovered inside. We believe a 48-year-old mother and her 16-year-old daughter were killed by the husband and biological father of the child before the suspect may have committed suicide. The investigators will address with you shortly additional information to the extent they can, because this is an active investigation. There are several additional key points I want to share with you. The family members of the victims live in Spain, and the suspect's family reside in Venezuela. We spoke with a few family members who stated the suspect moved his family unexpectedly to the United States prior to their child being born. The suspect very early on restricted the communication his wife could have with her family for many, many years. They recently moved to Orlando from New Jersey, and the wife had a job at Bravo Supermarkets. The owner of Bravo Supermarkets, where the mother worked, has graciously offered to assist the family with many of the expenses that will be associated with travel and obviously the funeral expenses associated with this tragedy. The high school where the child attended has been made aware of this tragedy, and grief counselors have been brought in to assist with this. All people in this country have a legal right to protect or to be protected or be assisted when they're in a abusive relationship. It doesn't matter what status you have in this country. Those services are available to you. If you're a victim of an abuser, or if you have knowledge of someone who's being abused, we have information posted up here that can be very helpful, but that's what we're here for. It doesn't matter what your legal status is in this country. You have that protection afforded to you, and people should take advantage of that. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to the detectives, who will expand on anything else that they may be able to share, and also to answer any questions that you might have.
Good morning. I'm Detective Sharp, and this is Detective Sprague. We are currently investigating the case that the chief just spoke about. As of right now, it is an active investigation, and most of what he told you is pretty much all we have to release at this time, because it's an open investigation. We don't believe at this time that there is any risk to the public. We do believe that this is an isolated incident. Unfortunately, it's a tragedy, but we don't believe that there's any other concerns for the community.
Okay, so I'm going to speak specifically not on the particulars of this case, because obviously this just happened yesterday, and we don't have a lot of details we can share right now, because we're still learning about what happened. In the interest of domestic violence, I teach on domestic violence throughout the state, and one thing I want to speak about specifically, we talk a lot about women being victims of femicide or domestic violence, homicides in relationships. But with children, in this particular case, we have the tragedy of a biological child being killed by a parent. So I'd like to speak specifically to young people who may not understand the dynamics of their parental relationship as being abnormal or dangerous. So to students out there who might be living in fear in their own homes with a biological parent or with a step-parent. If you feel as though one of your parents is living in fear, or you yourself are living in fear, or you and your siblings are living in fear, I want you to reach out to either someone in your school, a teacher, a dean, a principal, a counselor, or maybe even the parent of a friend of yours. Please let someone know that you are living in fear in your home. This may not have been out of the normal because she didn't know it was maybe abnormal. But when parents are controlling the other parent, and that parent doesn't have the freedom to move or make decisions or feel independent, there might be something else going on that could lead to something like this. So our investigation is going to focus a lot on their life in New Jersey. They just moved here over the summer. So we're going to be talking to the people who knew them there. We didn't have any calls to this residence. We had no indicators from neighbors or from this family that this could end tragically the way it did. But in domestic violence cases, there are always indicators that can lead to lethality, where someone that, you know, you claims to love you could tragically end your life. So we can prevent these cases, but we have to know about them. So law enforcement has to be involved, the schools, DCF, but we have to be involved. And then once intervention is in place, we can prevent domestic violence murders, unlike pretty much any other homicide that we investigate. These are preventable cases, but we have to know what's going on. Yes, sir.
Now, what are some of the red flags? You mentioned the children might not know any different, so they may not know that this is obviously out of the
Correct.
norm. Is it something more than narcissistic behavior?
It's isolating behavior. In this case, we're starting to unravel the isolation, where her family didn't know she moved to New Jersey. Her family didn't know she had been moved to Orlando. So when they arrive here, and we hope they're going to be here soon, we're going to be able to find out more about what happened with the isolation portion of it. Not all violence in the home is physical. Some violence is emotional, some violence is psychological, and isolation, power, and control, narcissistic behavior that can lead to isolation, power, and control. That maybe that individual who on the outside seems to be very boastful and very self-important, but does that in a way that you wouldn't know what was going on inside their home. So, but for young people who may not know any different, if they're living in fear, it's who's experiencing fear in the home. So if a child is anxious, if a child feels anxiety, if a child feels depressed, I would hope that people in the school system or their friends or their parents of those friends would want to maybe ask a few more questions about what's going on in the home. They may not know it's any different than any other home, but when you're living in fear, that can possibly be a red flag to what's going on in the family dynamic that could lead to domestic violence or suicide.
Because they moved here just over the summer, you weren't able to get any warning signs from the school. They probably didn't have enough knowledge about.
That's still under investigation. Obviously, this just happened yesterday, and we've been working it all night. So that's part of our future investigation with the school system and where she worked.
Announce what school the teen unfortunately
We
went
can.
to?
We can go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Phillips High School,
Dr. Phillips?
yes.
Just
I-
know they sent out a message to the nurses.
Oh, okay, they sent a message already? Do we know what grade she was in?
A few minutes ago.
I,
I may have missed this when the chief was speaking, but the bodies were found yesterday. Do we know when they may have been killed or when he may have killed himself?
we don't know that specifically right now, and we will probably be able to, the medical examiner will probably be able to give us an approximate, but there won't be an exact time, obviously, but it's within the past few days.
And who discovered the bodies? Or how did you know the bodies were?
So there was a phone call that was placed from her sister, wife's sister, in Spain. She called her cousin here in Orlando and asked her to please do a well-being check. So she went to the apartment and there was no answer. And that's when we became involved.
And be mindful, he was so controlling, the family had no idea where the victim was. They did their own research and were able to do their own investigative process to yield a location where she was at. And the relative here had no idea that she was even in Orlando. So, anyways.
You know, Chief, can you talk to us and give us your perspective? Because, I mean, we just wrapped up Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And it just, I mean, I got chills just hearing the story. And it's kind of like, how many cases are we looking at right now that are like this? As a chief, what's your message out there to our community? And for the people que no saben inglés, they don't know Spanish, they don't know our laws.
So no community is immune to this type of situation, but the signs may be there. We may just not be recognizing those signs, especially when it comes to coworkers. You know, if you notice suddenly the behavior of that person who may be very happy at all times and suddenly they're depressed or disconnected, that could be a sign. You know, we're teaching our officers that they must be empowered to act. the ABLE project, right? A program that we have here at the Orlando Police Department, that when they see something that needs to be addressed, that they address it quickly. I think our citizens also need to be made aware of the fact that they have the ability to intervene. They have the ability to maybe get involved to the extent where they can help their fellow coworker or friend. But sometimes we're reluctant to do that. And not saying that this could have been prevented, because God knows what information this may yield. But the fact of the matter is that, to your point, it's happening. But there are services available to help people. We are here to help people, especially to what you said also, newcomers into our country who may not understand our laws and the protections that are afforded to all citizens regardless of their status here in our country. Call us. Call the services that we had up. I think that we'll be able to display those again.
We'll send them over to everybody.
So that use those services. They're wonderful. They can help you. They can potentially save lives.
I will say that when the wife began working at Bravo, there were some somewhat indications, I'll say, by the coworkers. When she went in there initially to apply, the husband asked for a job for her. She didn't ask for herself. They were in there grocery shopping. And even throughout her employment at Bravo, a couple of the coworkers noticed that she always seemed nervous. But not knowing her that well, they just assumed that that was her personality. And not that they would have any idea that it would come to this, of course, but things like that, people, when you're working with people, if they're new, you know, and they seem maybe a little bit off, maybe we can ask a few more questions as, you know, as a community or as friends of these people or coworkers. If it just seems something's not right, just ask. Maybe it'll give her the opportunity or the person the opportunity to open up, and you could be that person that, you know, she feels comfortable, the person, whoever's in the situation, feels comfortable with.
Were they shot? How were they, is there any indication that they were shot, they were stabbed? Do you guys know, or is it too early in the investigation?
Are we,
We're gonna reserve that for now. Give us some time
Yeah.
to investigate the case, and we'll release more details as they become available.
thank you.
And we anticipate that the family members hopefully will be here soon, probably early next week. Maybe we can regroup and expand on what we have learned so far. So.
Certainly, in regards to your question, the families coming from out of the country, anything that happened to those loved ones, they deserve to know first. So that's our reason for that, and we'll explain it to the family, and then we'll explain it to the public.
Anything else?
Could you once again just reiterate the resources that are available, at least here locally, because I know sometimes having children makes it difficult to get away from it.
Can you lower the other screen, Just this lid?
Yep.
You can just read them off.
Yeah, here we go, sir.
Go ahead.
As everybody has presented here today, these resources of prevention are super important to the community, and we'll definitely make that available to everyone here today so that you can have them and you can share them among your viewers. The domestic violence hotline is a crucial resource that the police department does use, and it's available to our officers when they go out to these kind of calls, and available to the community as well. DCF Florida Abuse Hotline is another resource. Harbor House, they do have a confidential crisis hotline. We also have the prevention suicide hotline. There is a local one, and there's a national one as well. Also myflorida.com. Those are available to you as well.
I got one more question.
Yep.
The Bravo supermarket, do we know the location, which one it is?
Oak Ridge Road.
Yes, sir.
Or,
Oak Ridge.
I'm sorry.
We're gonna go there today.
Okay, so could you do me a favor? Can you allow the detectives to get there first before you descend on Bravo Supermarket, so that the employees don't feel like they're being intimidated by the camera, so they can have a chance to talk to them? So, what time do you think they can go over there? Or we should ask?
Give us at least half the day, please.
Half a day, so 2 o'clock? Do you mind? If you could honor that, we would appreciate it.